into this murder case.
When the sawdust settles and the engine.
We'll get into the YW Melly double murder trial, which it seems like the DA is fucking helping him. Basically, I'm gonna rewind it a little bit and show y'all why I say that. People she be saying, like, are you helping him? Or, like, I don't know. So we're gonna go back just in case some things, we missed and stuff or whatever, but we're gonna go back. I don't remember what was happening. What was happening.
Present in the mind at the time of the killing. The law does not fix the exact period of time that must pass between the formation of the premeditated intent to kill and the killing. The period of time must be long enough to allow reflection by the defendant. The premeditated intent to kill must be formed before the killing. The question of premeditation is a question of fact to be determined by you from the evidence. It will be sufficient proof of premeditation if the circumstances of the killing and the conduct of the accused convince you beyond a reasonable doubt of the existence of premeditation at the time of the killing. If you find that Janelle Dennis committed first-degree premeditated murder, and you also find beyond a reasonable doubt that during the commission of the crime, he actually possessed and discharged a firearm, you should find him guilty of first-degree premeditated murder with actual possession and discharge of a firearm. If you find that Janelle Dennis committed first-degree premeditated murder, and you also find beyond a reasonable doubt that during the commission of the crime, he did actually possess a firearm, you should find him guilty of first-degree premeditated murder with actual possession. If you find that Janelle Dennis committed first-degree premeditated murder, but did not actually possess or discharge a firearm during the commission of the offense, you should find him guilty only of first-degree premeditated murder. A firearm is defined as any weapon, including a starter gun, which is designed to or may readily be converted to expel a projectile by the action of an explosive, the frame or receiver of such weapon. Any firearm muffler or firearm silencer, any destructive device, or any machine gun. Actual possession of a firearm means the defendant A, had a firearm on his person, or B, had a firearm within immediate physical reach with ready access with the intent to use the firearm during the commission of the crime. You find that Janelle Dennis committed first-degree premeditated murder, and you also find beyond a reasonable doubt that during the commission of the crime, he was a criminal gang member or associate, as defined below, and the aforementioned activity was committed with the intent to benefit, promote, or further the interests of the criminal gang. You should find him guilty of first-degree premeditated murder in the first-degree premeditated murder in the first degree as a criminal gang member or associate. If you find that Janelle Dennis committed first-degree premeditated murder, but find that he was not a criminal gang member or associate, as defined below, you should find the defendant guilty only of first-degree premeditated murder. Criminal gang means a formal or informal ongoing organization, association, or group that has as primary activities the commission of criminal or delinquent acts, and that consists of 3 or more persons who have a common name or common identifying signs, colors, or symbols, including but not limited to terrorist organizations and hate groups. Ongoing means the organization was in existence during the time period charged in the indictment. Primary activities means that a criminal gang spends a substantial amount of time engaged in such activity, although such activity engages. Criminal gang associate means a person who A, admits to criminal gang association, or B, meets any single defining criteria for criminal gang membership. Criminal gang member is a person who meets two or more of the following criteria. A, admits to criminal gang membership. B, adopts the style of dress of a criminal gang. C, adopts the use of a hand sign identified as used by a criminal gang. D, has a tattoo identified as used by a criminal gang. E, associates with one or more known criminal gang members. F, is identified as a criminal gang member by an informant of previously untested reliability, and such identification is corroborated by independent information. G, is identified as a criminal gang member by physical evidence. H, has been observed in the company of one or more known criminal gang members 4 or more times. Observation in a custodial setting requires a willful association. I, as the author of any communication indicating responsibility for the commission of any crime by the criminal gang. Criminal gang activity means A, an activity committed with the intent to benefit, promote, or further the interests of the criminal gang, or for the purposes of increasing a person's own standing or position within a criminal gang. B, an activity in which the participants are identified as criminal gang members or criminal gang associates, acting individually or collectively to further any criminal purpose of a criminal gang. C, an activity that is identified as criminal activity by a documented, reliable informant. Or D, an activity that is identified as criminal gang activity by an informant of previously untested reliability, and such identification is corroborated by independent information. Electronic communication includes, but is not limited to, photographs, video, telephone communications, text messages, facsimile, electronic mail messages, real-time communications with other individuals through the internet or other means. Count 2. 7.2, premeditated murder, first degree. To prove the crime of first degree, premeditated murder, the state must prove the following 3 elements beyond a reasonable doubt. 1, Christopher Thomas is dead. 2, the death was caused by the criminal act of Jamel Dennis. 3, there was a premeditated killing of Christopher Thomas. Act includes a series of related actions arising from and performed pursuant to a single design or purpose. Killing with premeditation is killing having consciously decided to do so. The decision must be present in the mind at the time of the killing. The law does not fix the exact period of time that must pass between the formation of the premeditated intent to kill and the killing. The period of time must be long enough to allow reflection by the defendant. The premeditated intent to kill must be formed before the killing. The question of premeditation is a question of fact being determined by you from the evidence. It will be sufficient proof of premeditation if the circumstances of the killing and the conduct of the accused convince you beyond a reasonable doubt of the existence of premeditation at the time of the killing. If you find that Jamel Dennis committed first degree premeditated murder, and you also find beyond a reasonable doubt that during the commission of the crime, he actually possessed and discharged a firearm, you should find him guilty of first degree premeditated murder with actual possession and discharge of a firearm. If you find that Jamel Dennis committed first degree premeditated murder, and you also find beyond a reasonable doubt that during the commission of the crime, he did actually possess a firearm, you should find him guilty of first degree premeditated murder with actual possession. If you find that Jamel Dennis committed first degree premeditated murder, but did not actually possess or discharge a firearm during the commission of the offense, you should find him guilty only of first degree premeditated murder. The firearm is defined as any weapon, including a starter gun, which is designed to or may readily be converted to expel a projectile by the action of an explosive. The frame or receiver of any such weapon, any firearm muffler or firearm silencer, any destructive device, or any machine gun. Actual possession of a firearm means the defendant A carried a firearm on his person, or B had a firearm within immediate physical reach with ready access with the intent to use the firearm during the commission of the crime. If you find that Janelle Dennis committed first-degree premeditated murder, and you also find beyond a reasonable doubt that during the commission of the crime, he was a criminal gang member or associate as defined below, and the aforementioned activity was committed with the intent to benefit, promote, or further the interest of the criminal gang, you should find him guilty of first-degree premeditated murder in the first degree as a criminal gang member or associate. If you find that Janelle Dennis committed first-degree premeditated murder, but find that he was not a criminal gang member or associate as defined below, you should find the defendant guilty only of first-degree premeditated murder. Criminal gang means a formal or informal ongoing organization, association, or group that has one of its primary activities the commission of criminal or wrongful acts, and that consists of 3 or more persons who have a common name or common identifying signs, colors, or symbols, including but not limited to terrorist organizations and hate groups. Ongoing means that the organization was in existence during primary activity means that a criminal gang spends a substantial amount of time engaged in such activity, although such activity need not be the only or even the most important activity in which the criminal gang engages. Criminal gang associate means a person who A, admits to criminal gang association, or B, meets any single defining criterion for criminal gang membership. Criminal gang member is a person who meets 2 or more of the following criteria. A, admits to criminal gang membership. B, adopts the style of dress of a criminal gang. C, adopts the use of a hand sign identified as used by a criminal gang. D, has a tattoo identified as used by a criminal gang. E, associates with 1 or more known criminal gang members. F, is identified as a criminal gang member by an informant previously untested reliability, and such identification is corroborated by independent information.
What does any of that shit got to do with the fucking murder case? What does the
Criminal gang members 4 or more times. Observation in a custodial setting requires a willful association. I, as author of any communication, indicating responsibility for the commission of any crime by the criminal gang. Criminal gang-related activity means A, an activity committed with the intent to benefit, promote, or further the interests of a criminal gang, or for the purpose of increasing a person's own standing or position within.
This is how they confuse the jury. The verdict being guilty. This is how they, what's the name of the jury? If he's guilty, he's guilty. But let's focus on the murder. Let's focus on the murder. Like, you want to lock him up for being in the game? Because that's what it sounds like.
Electronic communication, but is not limited to photographs, video, telephone communications, text messages, facsimile, electronic mail, and instant message real-time communications with other individuals through the internet or other means. 3.4. When there are lesser included crimes or attempts. In considering the evidence, you should consider the possibility that although the evidence may not convince you that the defendant committed the main crimes of which he is accused, there may be evidence that he committed other acts that would constitute a lesser included crime. Therefore, if you decide that the main accusation has not been proved beyond a reasonable doubt, you will next need to decide if the defendant is guilty of any lesser included crime. The lesser crime indicated in the definition of murder in the first degree is manslaughter. Count 1, 7.7, manslaughter. To prove the crime of manslaughter, the state can prove the following two elements beyond a reasonable doubt. 1, Anthony Williams is dead. 2, Jamel Devins intentionally committed an act or acts that caused the death of Anthony Williams. 4, Jamel Devins intentionally procured an act that caused the death of Anthony Williams. Every person has a duty to act reasonably towards others. If there is a violation of that duty without any conscious intention of harm, that violation is negligence. The defendant cannot be guilty of manslaughter by committing a mere negligent act, or if the killing was either justifiable or excusable, as I have.
Now, if y'all have been following the case, y'all know they have not proved none of that. Like, the DA, I don't even understand.
Manslaughter by act, it is not necessary for the state to prove that the defendant had an intent to cause death. Only an
I
intent to
understand
commit
that,
an act that was not merely negligent, justified, or excusable, and which caused death. The procure means to persuade, induce, prevail upon, or cause a person
It's like
to do
she's
something.
helping him.
If you find that Jamel Devins committed manslaughter, and you also find beyond a reasonable doubt that during the commission of the crime, he actually possessed a firearm, you should find him guilty of manslaughter with actual possession of a firearm. If you find that Jamel Devins committed manslaughter, but did not actually possess a firearm during the commission of the offense, you should find him guilty only of manslaughter. A firearm is defined as any weapon, including a garden gun, which is designed to or may readily be converted to expel a projectile by the action of an explosive. The frame or
Mind
seal
you,
gun such
they
as
have no gun.
any firearm muffler,
They don't even have a gun.
silencer, any destructive device, or any machine gun.
They don't have
Actual
gun gun.
possession of a firearm.
Gun.
The defendant A carried a firearm on his person, or B had a firearm within immediate physical reach with ready access and used the firearm during the commission of the crime. If you find that Jamel Devins committed manslaughter, and you will also find beyond a reasonable doubt that during the commission of the crime, he was a criminal gang member or associate as defined below, and the aforementioned activity was committed with the intent to benefit, promote, or further the interests of the criminal gang, you should find him guilty of manslaughter as a criminal gang member or associate. If you find that Jamel Devins committed manslaughter, but find that he was not a criminal gang member or associate as defined below, you should find the defendant guilty only of manslaughter. Criminal gang means a formal or informal ongoing organization, association, or group that has one of its primary activities the commission of criminal or delinquent acts, and that consists of 3 or more persons who have a common name or common identifying signs, colors, or symbols, including but not limited to terrorist organizations and hate groups. Ongoing means that the organization was in existence during the time period charged in the indictment. Primary activities mean that the criminal gang spends a substantial amount of time engaged in such activity, or such activity need not be only or even the most important activity in which the criminal gang engages. Criminal gang associate means a person who A, admits to criminal gang association, or B, meets any single defined criterion for criminal gang memberships. Criminal gang member is a person who meets 2 or more of the following criteria. A, admits to criminal gang membership. B, adopts the style of dress of a criminal gang. C, adopts the use of a hand sign identified as used by a criminal gang. D, has a tattoo identified as used by a criminal gang. E, associates with 1 or more known criminal gang members. F, is identified as a criminal gang member by an informant of previously untested reliability and such identification is corroborated by independent information. G is identified as a criminal gang member by physical evidence. H has been observed in the company of one or more known criminal gang members 4 or more times. Observation in a custodial setting requires a willful association. I has authored any communication indicating responsibility for the commission of any crime by the criminal gang. Criminal gang-related activity means A, an activity committed with the intent to benefit, promote, or further the interests of the criminal gang, or for the purpose of increasing the person's own standing or position within the criminal gang. B, an activity in which the participants are identified as criminal gang members or criminal gang associates acting individually or collectively to further any criminal purpose of the criminal gang. C, an activity that is identified as criminal gang activity by a documented, reliable informant. Or D, an activity that is identified as criminal gang activity by an informant of previously untested reliability, and such identification is corroborated by independent information. Electronic communication includes, but is not limited to, photographs, video, telephone communications, text messages, facsimile, electronic mail messages, and instant messages, real-time communications with other individuals through the internet or other means. Count 2, 7.7, manslaughter. To prove the crime of manslaughter, the state must prove the following 2 elements beyond reasonable doubt. 1, Christopher Thomas is dead. 2, Mel Dennis intentionally committed an act or acts that caused the death of Christopher Thomas. 4, Jamel Dennis intentionally procured an act that caused the death of Christopher Thomas. Every person has a duty to act reasonably towards others. If there is a violation of that duty without any conscious intention of harm, that violation is negligence. The defendant cannot be guilty of manslaughter by committing a merely negligent act, or if the killing was either justifiable or excusable homicide, as I have previously instructed you. The explanations of justifiable homicide and excusable homicide are in instruction 7.1, introduction to homicide. In order to convict of manslaughter by act, it is not necessary for the state to prove that the defendant had an intent to cause death, only an intent to commit an act that was not merely negligent. Here means to persuade, induce, prevail upon, or cause a person to do something. If you find that Jamel Dennis committed manslaughter, and you also find beyond a reasonable doubt that during the commission of the crime he actually possessed a firearm, you should find him guilty of manslaughter with actual possession of a firearm. If you find that Jamel Dennis committed manslaughter, but did not actually possess a firearm during the commission of the offense, you should find him guilty only of manslaughter. A firearm is defined as any weapon, including a starter gun, which will, is designed to or may readily be converted to a spell projectile by the action of an explosive. The frame or receiver of any such weapon, any firearm muffler, a firearm silencer, any destructive device, or any machine gun. Actual possession of a firearm means the defendant A, carried a firearm on his person, or B, had a firearm within immediate physical reach with ready access with the intent to use the firearm during the commission of the crime. If you find that Jamel Dennis committed manslaughter, you also find beyond a reasonable doubt that during the commission of the crime, he was a criminal gang member, associate as defined below, and the aforementioned activity was committed with the intent to benefit, promote, or further the interests of the criminal gang. You should find him guilty of manslaughter as a criminal gang member or associate. If you find that Jamel Dennis committed manslaughter, but find that he was not a criminal gang member or associate as defined below, you should find the defendant guilty only of manslaughter. Criminal gang means a formal or informal ongoing organization, association, or group that has one of its primary activities the commission of criminal or wrongful acts, and that that consists of 3 or more persons who have a common name or common identifying signs, colors, or symbols, including but not limited to terrorist organizations and hate groups. Ongoing means that the organization was in existence during the time period charged in the indictment. Primary activities means that the criminal gang spends a substantial amount of time engaged in such activity, although such activity need not be the only or even the most important activity in which the criminal gang is engaged. Criminal gang associate means a person who A, admits to criminal gang association, or B, meets any single defining criterion of criminal gang membership. Criminal gang member is a person who meets 2 or more of the following criteria. A, admits to criminal gang membership. B, adopts the style of dress of a criminal gang. C, adopts the use of a hand sign identified as used by a criminal gang. D, has a tattoo identified as used by a criminal gang. E, associates with 1 or more known criminal gang members. F, is identified as a criminal gang member by forming a previously untested reliability, and such identification is corroborated by neighborhood information. G, is identified as a criminal gang member by physical evidence. H, has been observed in company of 1 or more known criminal gang members 4 or more times. Observation in a custodial setting requires a willful association. I, has authored any communication indicating responsibility for the commission of any crime by the criminal gang. Criminal gang related activity means A, an activity committed with the intent to benefit, promote, or further the interests of a criminal gang, or for the purpose of increasing a person's own standing or position within a criminal gang. B, an activity in which the participants are identified as criminal gang members or criminal gang associates, acting individually or collectively to further any criminal purpose of criminal gang. C, an activity that is identified as criminal gang activity by a documented, reliable informant. Or D, an activity that is identified as criminal gang activity by an informant of previously untested reliability, and such identification is corroborated by independent electronic communication includes, but it's not limited to, photographs, video, telephone communication, text messages, facsimile, electronic mail messages, and instant message real-time communication with other individuals through the internet or other means. 3.5A. If the defendant helped another person or person attempt to commit a crime, the defendant is a principal and must be treated as if he had done all the things the person did if 1, the defendant had a conscious intent that the criminal act be done, and 2, the defendant did some act or said some word which was intended to, and which did incite, cause, encourage, assist, or advise the other person or person to actually commit or attempt to commit the crime. To be a principal, the defendant does not have to be present when the crime is committed or attempted. 3.7. Pleaded not guilty, reasonable doubt, further proof. The defendant has entered a plea of not guilty. This means you must presume to believe the defendant is innocent. The presumption stage of the defendant as to each material allegation in the indictment through each stage of the trial, unless it is overcome by the evidence to the exclusion of and beyond a reasonable doubt. To overcome the defendant's presumption of innocence, the state has the burden of proving a crime with which the defendant is charged was committed, and the defendant is the person who committed the crime. The defendant is not required to present evidence or prove anything. Whenever the words reasonable doubt are used, you must consider the following. A reasonable doubt is not a mere possible doubt, a speculative, imaginary, forced doubt. Such a doubt does not influence you to return a verdict of not guilty if you have an abiding conviction of guilt. On the other hand, if, after carefully considering, comparing, and weighing all the evidence, there is not an abiding conviction of guilt, or if having a conviction it is one which is not stable, or one which wavers and vacillates, then the charge is not proved beyond every reasonable doubt, and you must find the defendant not guilty because the doubt is reasonable. It is to the evidence introduced in this trial and to it alone that you are to look for that proof. A reasonable doubt as to the guilt of the defendant may arise from the evidence, conflict in the evidence, or the lack of evidence. If you have a reasonable doubt, you should find the defendant not guilty. If you have no reasonable doubt, you should find the defendant guilty. 3.9, weighing the evidence. It is up to you to decide what evidence is reliable. You should use your common sense in deciding which is the best evidence and which evidence should not be relied upon to consider your verdict. You may find some of the evidence not reliable or less reliable than other evidence. You should consider how the witnesses acted, as well as what they said. Some things you should consider are: 1, did the witness seem to have an opportunity to see and know the things about which the witness testified? 2, did the witness seem to have an accurate memory? 3, was the witness honest and straightforward in answering the attorney's questions? 4, did the witness have some interest in how the case should be decided? 5, does the witness's testimony agree with the other testimony and other evidence in the case? 6, has the witness been offered or received any money, deferred treatment, or other benefit in order to get the witness to testify? 7, had any pressure or threat been used against the witness that affected the truth of the witness's testimony? 8, did the witness at some other time make a statement that is inconsistent with the testimony he or she gave in court? 9, has the witness been convicted of a felony? Whether the state has met its burden of proof does not depend upon the number of witnesses it is called or upon the number of exhibits it is offered, but instead upon the nature and quality of the evidence presented. The fact that a witness is employed in law enforcement does not mean that his or her testimony deserves more or less consideration than that of any other witness. Expert witnesses are like other witnesses with one exception. The law permits an expert witness to give his or his opinion. However, an expert's opinion is reliable only when given on a subject about which you believe him to be an expert. Like other witnesses, you may believe or disbelieve all or any part of an expert's testimony. You must consider the testimony of some witnesses with more caution than others. For example, a witness who hopes to gain more favorable treatment in his own case can have a reason to make a false statement in order to strike a good bargain with the state. This is particularly true when there is no other evidence tending to agree with what the witness says about the defendant. So while a witness of that kind may be entirely truthful when testifying, you should consider his testimony with more caution than the testimony of other witnesses. However, if the testimony of such a witness convinces you beyond reasonable doubt of the defendant's guilt, or the other evidence in the case does so, then you should find the defendant guilty. It is entirely proper for a lawyer to talk to a witness about what testimony the witness would give if called guilty. The witness should not be discredited by talking to a lawyer about his or her testimony. You may rely upon your own conclusions about the credibility of any witness. A juror may believe or disbelieve all or any part of the evidence or the testimony of any witness. 3.9, let's say, section A, defendant not testifying. The Constitution requires the state to prove its accusations against the defendant. It is not necessary for the defendant to disprove anything, nor is the defendant required to prove his innocence. It is up to the state to prove the defendant's guilt by evidence. The defendant exercised a fundamental right by choosing not to be a witness in this case. You must not view this as an admission of guilt or be influenced in any way by his decision. No juror should ever be concerned that the defendant did or did not take a witness stand to give testimony. 3.10, rules for deliberation. These are some general rules that apply to your discussion. You must follow these rules in order to return a lawful verdict. 1, you must follow the law as it is set out in these instructions. If you fail to follow the
Melly
law,
Murder.
your verdict will be a miscarriage of justice. There is no reason for failing to follow the law in this case. All of us are depending upon you to make a wise and big decision this time. 2, this case must be decided only upon the evidence that you have heard from the testimony of the witnesses and have seen in the form of exhibits and evidence and these instructions. 3, this case must not be decided for or against anyone because you feel sorry for anyone or are angry at them. 4, remember, the lawyers are not on trial. Your feelings about them should not influence your decision. 5, your duty is to determine if the defendant has been proven guilty or not in accordance with the law. 6, whatever verdict you render must be unanimous, that is, each juror must agree to the same verdict. 7, your verdict must not be influenced by feelings of prejudice, bias, or sympathy. Your verdict must be based on the evidence and on the law contained in the instructions.
What's that?
3.11, cautionary instruction. Deciding a verdict is exclusively your job. I cannot participate in that decision in any way. Please disregard anything I may have said or done that made you think I prefer one verdict over another. 3.12, verdict. You may find the defendant guilty as charged in the indictment or guilty of such lesser included crime as the evidence may justify or not guilty. If you return a verdict of guilty, it should be for the highest offense which is proven beyond reasonable doubt. If you find that no offense has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt, then of course your verdict must be not guilty. The verdict must be unanimous, that is, all of you must agree to the same verdict. Only one verdict may be returned as to each crime charged. The verdict must be in writing, and for your convenience, the necessary forms of verdict have been prepared for you. They are as follows. 3.12, A, subsection A, single defendant, multiple counts. A separate crime is charged in each count of the indictment, and although they have been tried together, each crime and the evidence applicable to it must be considered separately, and a separate verdict returned as to each. A finding of guilty or not guilty as to one crime must not affect your verdict as to the other crime charged. The verdict. I don't think you have that in the package. I have it here. The verdict starts out as of the top. The style of the case, that's what we refer to as the style of the case. It reads, in the circuit court of the 17th Judicial Circuit in Fort Broward County, Florida, case number 19-001872, CS10A, Judge John J. Murphy, State of Florida, plaintiff versus Jamel Dennis, defendant, verdict. Count 1. We, the jury, find as follows as to the defendant in this case. It goes on in parentheses, check only one. A, the defendant is guilty of murder in the first degree as charged in the indictment. B, the defendant is guilty of manslaughter, the lesser included offense. C, the defendant is not guilty. Goes on further, it says, if you find the defendant guilty of any of the crimes listed above, you must answer the following questions. 1. During the course of the crime committed, did the defendant, Jamel Dennis, actually possess a firearm? And you check the appropriate box, either yes or no. Goes on paragraph 2. During the course of the crime committed, did the defendant, Jamel Dennis, actually discharge a firearm? You check the appropriate box, either yes or no. Question 3. During the course of the crime committed, did the defendant, Jamel Dennis, actually inflict death or great bodily harm to Anthony Williams as a result of discharging a firearm in his possession? Again, check the appropriate box, either yes or no. The verdict form goes on. Question 4. Did the state prove beyond a reasonable doubt the defendant committed the crime for the purpose of benefiting, promoting, or furthering the criminal gang? Again, you check the appropriate box, either yes or no.
No.
And then it goes on, says, so say the goal was one day of blank 80, 2023 at Fort Broward County, Florida. There's a place for the four-person sign and date the verdict. There's a second verdict. Again, has the style of the case up at the top, and it reads, verdict, count 2. We, the jury, find as follows as to the defendant in this case, check number 1. A, the defendant is guilty of murder in the first degree as charged in the indictment. B, the defendant is guilty of manslaughter or lesser included offense. C, the defendant is not guilty. Goes down further and says, if you find the defendant guilty of any of the crimes listed above, you must answer the following questions. 1, during the course of the crime committed, did the defendant, Jamel Dennis, actually possess a firearm? Again, check the appropriate box either yes or no. Question 2, during the course of the crime committed, did the defendant, Jamel Dennis, actually discharge a firearm? Again, you check the appropriate box either yes or no. Question 3, during the course of the crime committed, the defendant, Jamel Dennis, actually inflict death or great bodily harm to Christopher Thomas as a result of discharging a firearm in his possession. Again, you check the appropriate box either yes or no. It goes on. Question 4, did the state prove beyond a reasonable doubt the defendant committed a crime for the purpose of benefiting, promoting, or furthering the interests of the criminal gang? Again, you check the appropriate box either yes or no. It goes on further, says so say we all this blank day of blank AD 2023 at Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, Florida. And again, we responded to the file to the 4 persons put their name and sign the date of birth. Is there any objection to the instructions of the post no report by the state?
Yeah.
By the defense? No, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to the second page of the instructions called closing argument 2.7. It reads as follows. The state and the defendant have now rested their case. The attorneys now will present their final arguments. Please remember that what the attorneys say is not evidence or your instruction on the law. However, to listen closely to their arguments, they are intended to aid in understanding the case. Each side will have equal time, but the state is entitled.
She was talking nonsense. This shit goes on for at least like a few hours. We're not going through all that again. No.
Where he gets in the spot the murderer sat. It's important to notice, ladies and gentlemen, that phone. Always, always, always in his hand. He doesn't let go of it, still in his right hand as he's going to go get in that rear driver's side seat. Same with that satchel. Recall, ladies and gentlemen, that satchel and the one that you see Christopher Thomas wearing are never recovered. So they were taken out of their car by the defendant. So let's talk about the normal records in the phones, why this is important. Okay? So the question is, are the phones themselves, do they know where they are? And then the network know where the phone is. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the exhibits that was put in, and this is the phone of Mr. Devlins at 3:18 a.m. If you will notice that there is right here a camera icon, and that is located at 805 Northeast 4th Avenue, because that's the camera from the studio that you just watched. And the blue pin is where the network thinks the phone is. Is it perfectly precise? No. But is it accurate? Yes. Within a football field, right? We learned that less than 78 meters is the range of those bands for the timing advance. But this isn't the timing advance. This is where the network thinks the phone is. Ladies and gentlemen, phones work. You know the phones work because in your daily life, when you need to go anywhere, go into a mapping app and you put an address in. You don't have to know where you are to get somewhere because the phone knows where you are. What's a reasonable inference, ladies and gentlemen? Phone wasn't on. Didn't have minutes, or it was broken. That's what those records show. They don't show Mr. Henry making a ton of phone calls and passing the phone off to someone else. No, they show a phone that was not operating. So, looking at the CDRs, so this is from Mr. Dennis, the 9807 phone number. What I've done, 840, 34 at the top, that's going to be this, for the time in question, October 26, 2018, you subtract 4. That's the same whether you're looking at the CDRs, whether you're looking at the Facebook or Instagram records. So that way you can put the cross-reference to see what's going on with an individual phone and where that phone is when these messages are being sent and when the social media is being accessed. So if you recall, ladies and gentlemen, we learned that he 805-63. We learned that he 805-637-7249. If you see an incoming phone call, and then that immediately outgoing to that number, says it goes to voicemail. So right there, you have at 5:03 a.m., Jamie King calling the phone of Jamel Dennis, her son, and being sent straight to voicemail. Then you have an incoming phone call from Frederick Gibbons, Frito Bank, that lasts 491 seconds. You then have another incoming call, only 11 seconds, and then Jamie King again sent to voicemail. So let's talk about the surveillance footage. And I know, I warned you ahead of time, there are some parts of this that are incredibly boring. Cover the TVs, but they're important. And sometimes it's the smallest details that show that, look, this is what it says it is. So you have here 3:35 a.m., 36 seconds. And as you recall, this is the camera that sits on 595 on the entrance and exit to the express lanes. We learned from Detective Moretti that the express lanes hold camera all the way out past 136th Street. So ladies and gentlemen, from here, we know from the studio at 3:19 a.m., we're now 3:35, 16 minutes later. We have 2 cars, and you can go and pull this up. And if you need any assistance with doing it, we'll be happy to back up and show you.